Hello and welcome to Into the Woods with Holly Wharton. This podcast has evolved over the 5+ years since it first launched. From now on, I'm going to be talking about deepening your connection with yourself, taking inspired action, and really trusting yourself and your intuition. And also mindset, of course, but mindset of all kinds, not just business mindset. I think. Things are changing for me, as you may have noticed if you've been following me online or listening to this podcast, so anything goes here. I hope you stay along for the ride. Thank you so much for joining us today, and now let's get into this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the Into the Woods podcast, episode 281. This is your host, Holly Wharton, and I'm super excited to say I am back with another co-hosted episode with the fabulous Jo Casey. It's been a long time since we did an episode together. In fact, our last one was in May. My business, as you know, has taken a new turn in direction, focusing on writing and focusing on nature and helping people connect more deeply to themselves through connecting with nature. So we thought, what are we going to talk about? Not business. Let's talk about woo. So after a little chat a couple weeks ago, we thought that it would be fun and interesting and useful for our listeners for our podcast episodes together to take on more of a metaphysical focus and talk about all things woo. Jo calls it everything you ever wanted to know about intuition, woo, and witchcraft, but were too afraid to ask. So in this very first episode of the woo variety, we will be talking about our own personal journeys to woo, how you can benefit from connecting to your own woo. As Jo often says, she has tons of questions about this. She'll be asking me questions, some of which I'm sure I can answer and some of which I may not be able to answer. But our first conversation on this topic was really, really good. I think it was really juicy, and I think it's also really useful for other people to hear because it can help you to reflect on your own journey and what you think about this stuff. So I'm super excited to introduce this episode. What you will learn today. We talk about why we're shifting our focus to woo for these co-hosted episodes. We also talk about what do we mean by woo. I know some people use it a lot. Some people don't even know what it means. And for some people, that's a very controversial word to even be using because some people see woo as just normal life. We talk about our own journeys to woo, how they're different, and what your journey might look like for you. We talk about why you might be a seeker even if you're not aware of it, because I certainly wasn't aware of it for the longest time. We discuss what is intuition, why you might want it, and how you can cultivate your own sense of intuition. We discuss why people are often resistant to opening up to woo, but yet why more people are starting to open up to it. Finally, we close with why it can be useful and very empowering in the true sense of the word for you to open up to woo. For me, it has been a massive, important part of my journey. And it's something that I'm really glad that I opened up to start kind of incorporating into my life because it's really helped me be more grounded, more centered, more confident. It's been absolutely life-changing. So without further ado, this is a long and juicy episode. I will turn you over to our conversation.
Hello, welcome. This is Jo Casey and I'm here with Holly Wharton and we're very excited to be back.
Yes!
So, the eagle-eared amongst you will have noticed that it's been a while. It's been a while since Holly and I have done podcasts together, and we used to do a monthly podcast, which was still very much business-focused, and there have been some changes over the past few months, and we kind of wanted to come back with a bit of a new format, but still with some really, really relevant, I think, juicy conversations. So we're very excited about the slight pivot in direction that we're taking on these monthly episodes, and we can't wait to share them with you. So Holly, would you mind just telling folks a little bit about what's been going on for you? Because I think for you, it's been a much more of a kind of significant change of direction to, whereas I'm pretty much doing the same thing. I was going to say, how does it reach it? No, I'm still doing the same, yeah.
Yes. So after much resistance this year, I have let go of the business mindset part of my business, which is like my entire business. And I've decided to focus on my writing and helping people through my writing. However, I've also moved away from writing the business mindset books, and I'm moving more towards books that, I mean, we'll see where this goes, but the one I'm working right now is helping people connect to themselves through connecting with nature. And I think that's going to be kind of the theme for my books from here on out. We shall see. But I'm focusing more on the nature side of things rather than the mindset side of things.
I think for folks who've known you and certainly have listened to your podcast for the past kind of 12 months or so, I know even on the monthly episodes that we did, we had lots of conversations about the fact that you felt you were in process of kind of letting go of some stuff and there was something new on the way, but you weren't sure what it was. There was a lot of, I'm not sure of the direction. So it's really lovely hearing the certainty and the clarity in your voice. And just that kind of groundedness in this decision, that it's like the path kind of became apparent to you, kind of revealed itself to you.
Yeah, the funny thing is, when I look back through my journals, the path became apparent to me quite early on in the year. And I just didn't take action on it because I was really resisting it. I always find it really challenging to kind of shift, kind of let go of old identities and step into a new identity. So to fully step into the author identity and release the business mindset expert identity was like, I mean, it took the better part of this year. So that was the challenging part of it for me, I think.
I think that piece around our identities is so potent and powerful, and yet doesn't get talked about and discussed nearly as much as I think it kind of could do with, particularly in terms of the personal development, coaching arena. I know that kind of, who am I? What is my thing in the world? Who am I being? All of those kind of questions, they're so deep, they're so fundamental. I think they do take time to shake out, and it's a big deal. It can be kind of intimidating. And I think then once you've kind of transitioned into it, it can feel, and I don't know if this was your experience, it can feel like, oh, this just feels so right. But It can take a long time to kind of process that, I think.
It does. It does. I agree that this is something that I think we need to be talking about more, and more people need to be sharing their stories. Because I think for those of us that are into the coaching world and into personal development, we often pivot a lot in our business and let go of old identities and step into new ones as we're kind of peeling off the layers of crap that we are not and getting to the core of who we are and really refining what our business is and how we help people and how we serve. Like, we can go through a lot of different iterations of business before we kind of get to that. At this point, I'm wondering, does it ever really end? Because I feel like life is kind of a process of refining and getting to that core. So really, this is ongoing.
I agree. And I think even if you think about you speak seen as the ages of man, but I think the ages of womanhood, the archetypes that we go through, those roles, those archetypes that we inhabit, even just through the aging process, going from the maiden to whether it be the mother or then into the crone or the wise woman. And we're really crap talking about that stuff and helping people through even just those transitions, which affect pretty much everybody. And I think you're absolutely right. We never stop that process of kind of peeling away the layers, kind of identifying and standing in our true essence. And I think that true essence also has an evolution depending on the times in our life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think it's something that this kind of instant, just add water, ping in the microwave culture that we have is like, well, aren't I there yet? Haven't I done this? All of that being said, it's lovely hearing that clarity and that kind of ownership in your voice. I can almost like sense relief is the right word?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, it is the right word, okay.
It is, and it was such a struggle. And every time I've pivoted to a new iteration of my business, I've really struggled with, what are people going to think? I'm changing my mind again, all that crap. But the second I let go of that and I started making changes on my website, and that was kind of the moment where I felt like, okay, the change is here because I've removed all the stuff on my website about work with me and here's what I do. And that was when I really felt like, okay, I can settle into this. I have made the decision and I'm here. It was definitely a sense of relief.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yay.
So can I ask a bit more then about, so you're going to be writing and it's about the connection with nature, but I know that's not the only thing that's been going on for you. I know that you've been working on some spiritual stuff as well.
Yeah. Yep, throughout the course of the year. And it's interesting now as the year is coming to an end, how aligned my spiritual path this year has been with the book that I'm working on and my own personal journey. It's really not a surprise that it's all kind of been parallel, and I didn't really see it until a few weeks ago. So the start of the year, I had let go of a spiritual group that I had been in for 12 years, which was the Sufi group. And I was working with a Sufi teacher, and we had personal exercises that we did every day and weekly group exercises. And it was absolutely life-changing for me when I joined it 12 years ago. And it's where I met my husband, and something that I still love. But I started to feel towards the end of the last year that I needed something new. And I needed a new kind of spiritual path that was more nature-based and more earth-based. And it really took me a long time to find it, because I was kind of simultaneously like drawn to the pagan stuff, but also kind of really not. So had a lot of judgmental crap about pagan spiritual paths that I needed to let go of before I finally found Druidry last December, and I signed up for the Bardic Grade course through OBOD, which is the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids, and started that. And that has been absolutely life-changing for me in terms of giving me kind of a framework for how I approach my spiritual connection to nature, because I've always felt a deep spiritual connection to nature. Nature's been more to me than just walking in the woods. It feeds my soul. It gives me so much on a spiritual level, but I never really had a framework for understanding that and working with it. And I feel like now I do. So I'm really, really excited about the path that I'm on, and really looking forward to kind of moving into the next phase of this with my application now for the Ovate grade. And yeah, moving forward with nature spirituality.
I know that in your writing and on your podcast, you've gone into this in much more depth, but for those folks who, could you just give us like the briefest of briefest primers on what is Druidism? Yeah. My understanding is it's a very ancient religion which is based around nature. It was kind of politically driven out, I believe, certainly in my part of the world and British Isles. But yeah, could you just give folks a bit of you could always see my kind of, I think I've kind of hit my level of knowledge on it there.
Well, it was the original spiritual path of this land. It originated here in Britain. People came from Europe, people came from Ireland to study here in this land. And it is very nature-based. It's looking at our connection to the elements, to the plant realm, to the mineral realm, to the animal realm, to looking at the change of did I already say the change of the seasons, the passing of the seasons, celebrating the different equinoxes and solstices and the other pagan holidays in between those, and deepening our connection to nature through connection with the elements and the trees and the plants and all of that, and really honoring the earth that we live on.
I already know. I'm wanting a book list off you. I want
yes.
But the nerd in me now is like, I want to know about all of this. This sounds amazing.
I have really, really enjoyed this path. So it's the program that I'm on is a 3-year program, and each year is very different. So the Bardic grade, which is the first grade, is very much about old stories, the ancient lore, and coming from the Sufi tradition, where you have teaching stories that have so many different layers of teaching, I have loved seeing that in the Druid tradition. So we were looking at the story throughout the year, amongst other things, of Taliesin and his journey into kind of spirituality and his transformation, but looking at that story as a teaching story from so many different levels. And it was like every month in the post, you get this kind of package of stuff to study. And we would look at that story from a different level, from a different layer. I just absolutely loved it. So I'm happy to share a reading list, share ideas of things to look at, because it's just really, really fascinating. And just really helped me to deepen my connection to nature and understand why I've always felt connected to nature.
That sounds amazing. Okay, so it kind of brings us nicely into what the kind of the focus of this kind of new iteration of the monthly podcast is going to be, because I think throughout our journey together doing these episodes, it's always been fairly clear that you were way more open to ideas of spirit and metaphysics and, for want of a better word, woo, than I was. I've always kind of joked that I was woo adjacent, although you always insist that I'm a lot more woo than I will admit.
I think you're a lot more woo than you will admit to yourself. It's like you don't see how woo you actually are.
Okay, fair enough.
It's not like you're hiding it from other people. I think you just don't see it in yourself.
Do you know, I think most of my clients would agree with you that I think partly it's because I feel like I have so little actual knowledge. Like, I think it's the geek in me, the nerd in me wants to kind of, I want the research, I want the books, and it feels like such a big arena. But I am definitely open, if fairly ignorant a lot of things. And so we were kind of chatting and talking about, well maybe that becomes the jumping off point for our conversations, because I know from so many people that I know and I come into contact with, whether it might be my clients or whether it be, you know, people in my community or my friends, that there is a desire or a burgeoning awareness in so many of us that this is not all there is. There are connections to nature, there is connections to the lunar cycle, you know, the number of entrepreneurs who this past week were still in Mercury retrograde at the moment, who have just had the most ridiculous tech things and challenges. And it's always become just the accepted wisdom now in my communities that things like the planets and energies do affect us. I have a suspicion that as women in particular, and women identifying folks, we are, whether we're culturally more attuned to it or just by our very nature we're more attuned to it. But there's a lot of people who are seeking, and I definitely class myself as one of those people. And so we chatted and thinking that might be a really good topic of conversation. Let's dive into maybe different aspects of woo, for want of a better word. And we're going to talk a little bit about that terminology, because I don't think neither of us are 100% happy with that terminology. And me take the position of the person who asks 7 million questions, because that's how I tend to I lead with things. And you, not in the position of guru, because I know that's not a position that you would ever put yourself in, but it's just the person who's, you know, has more knowledge, is further along the path, has a really interesting different perspective, and have some conversations around some of these things that I think, particularly for my audience who are business owners, how do we start to incorporate some of this stuff? Can we incorporate some of this stuff? What some of the historical things are around this, and just how we can use things like our intuition, other magical practices, for, again, want of a better word, woo practices, to enhance our lives and enhance our businesses.
Absolutely. And you used a word there that I think is really important to highlight, which is seeker. I was a seeker for so long, and I didn't even realize it. It was like I was looking for more. I was looking for information. I wanted to learn more about this stuff, but it wasn't until probably about a month or so before I joined my first spiritual path that someone said, like, straight up, you are a seeker. And it was like a light bulb went on in my head, and I was like, you're right. I'm looking for more. But like, I didn't realize it. It was like I was craving something, but I didn't know what or how to get it. So how has your journey been like with that, with being a seeker?
I think something similar. It's like recently I was doing a questionnaire for a friend who's a coach, and she asked about spiritual beliefs. You know, do you believe in a Christian God or things like that? And I said words to the effect of, I don't believe necessarily in a Christian God, but I don't unbelieve. I believe I can't tell you what is out there, but I know there is something, that there's a lot. I know we're connected, but I don't know how. I know that. So that it's almost like I have an instinctive knowing without having any kind of, or very little languaging to put around it. Yes. I know there is so much more And I think part of and I don't doubt that nearly as much as I used to. So I think certainly before I met you and having these kind of regular conversations that we've been having over the past few years. And interestingly enough, over the past few years, my clients have become more and more diverse in terms of their methodologies and their I get to work with some amazing practitioners of the most amazing modalities, people who do nature medicine or are shamans or work with the divine feminine. And I think before I started having those conversations with you and other folks, I think my self-doubt would creep in, that old kind of, oh God, that's really stupid. We've got no evidence of that, have you? And that would kick in much more. Now that doesn't kick in. That's kind of, I don't understand what that is, but it sounds amazing. Or sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes it's just like, I instinctively know that what this person is talking about, but I don't have language for it yet. Does that make sense? So it's like it's operating on a different level in me.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. It's like your gut knows it, but your head doesn't have the framework to. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's like my cells or something.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I always say that my gut is smarter than my head, so.
I think most things are smarter than my head. In all seriousness, it really depends, because my head is where my anxiety resides. It's all my fears, all the not useful fears reside. It can also be incredibly insightful and it can read a lot of books, but it's really not that multidimensionally smart. It can be clever, but not smart.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So all of what you're saying makes perfect sense. I think would it be useful to talk a little about languaging around this? I think maybe because that's one of the areas I'm struggling with. So I know that you and I talked about this idea of woo, and I think it's a phrase that I use in terms of in my mind it came from that phrase, it's very woo-woo, in that kind of eye-rolly way, and then by using the term it's almost like reclaiming it and making it my own, and kind of go, no, actually I really like it. It's all kind of, it's magical and it encompasses a whole load of other stuff. But you were saying that certainly for some of your friends and fellow practitioners that they don't like the word.
Yes. Actually, I did an episode, I think it was early this year or last year on my podcast, where I interviewed kind of 5 different woo experts. And so I did kind of 5 mini interviews and kind of put them all together. And at least one, if not 2 of the people on that said specifically, I don't like that word because to me, it's not woo, it's normal. Like, that is my normal life. It is full of this stuff. So by calling it woo, it's like saying it's not normal or weird or different, whereas for me, this is my normal life.
That makes a lot of sense for people who are at that stage of this is my normal life.
Yeah. Exactly.
Are there any other words, other kind of terminology then that we could use interchangeably, or?
I don't know. I don't know of any other words. I will use the word woo just because I feel like I think everyone knows what it means. But I happened to mention woo on Facebook. I don't know whether it was when I posted about that episode or what, but a friend of mine from years and years ago actually posted and said, I don't know what woo is. Can you explain that? And I was like, you've never heard that term before? Like, I'm aware that I'm in this really niche world of woo people, but I really didn't realize that normal, oh God, I just said normal people.
So I've got a couple of clients who are in the coaching world who call non-coaching people muggles.
Yeah, I was going to use that word, and then I thought no, and then I said normal, which was worse. So let's go with muggle. I've never actually read the Harry Potter books, but I know what that means.
They're amazing. They are seriously good books. But anyway, that's an aside. That's another episode. Well, I will try and bring you over to the Harry Potter side of things.
Yeah, so I don't know of any other words. I mean, I feel like for a lot of people, woo kind of, it's 3 letters, 1 syllable, easy to say. Most people know what that means, I think. But then some people you have to explain it to. So I don't know, metaphysical stuff, alternative, I don't even know what. To me, woo is the best word that I found, even though I know not everyone is happy with it.
Okay, well, I think that's probably the word that we will be using most often. Intuition is another word that I use quite a lot, and I don't know if that encompasses all of the same. Intuition is more of the modality, the methodology, whereas woo, I think, encompasses a lot more than that. It can be different practices.
It's like the overarching kind of theme. Yeah. So intuition, and interestingly, one of my first books was on business intuition.
I know, right?
Because I think it's so important. And intuition is something that for years I was totally out of touch with it. Like I was just not connected to myself. I was totally off whack with myself, really disconnected. And so I thought intuition was the kind of thing that like either you have it or you don't. And then I learned that no, you can actually develop it in yourself by doing certain things or forging that connection and that trust in yourself. So what is intuition? Intuition is your gut feeling, your inner compass, your true north, that kind of feeling that tells you if something's right or wrong. I don't know, it's that idea that pops into your head when you are thinking about something else. And as soon as it pops into your head, like maybe it's an idea for a creative thing or a new path or something, and you just know in your gut that it's right. How would you define intuition? What is it for you?
So I find that a lot of the time when I'm working with people, this is something that has happened much more as I've kind of developed as a practitioner, but I'm much more comfortable in leaning into, I suppose, the flow and being in the moment with people. And I find that there's almost like a tuning into the energy flow. And I find that kind of ideas and inspiration, and it's almost like they're downloaded. So it's almost like that conscious part of my brain is kind of off, kind of going, oh yes, we need to think of the blah 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 blah, and then I'll get this flash of inspiration, and it almost comes outside of me in this amazing combination of just being in really deep connection with. And sometimes, and this has happened increasingly over the past kind of 6 to 12 months, and I blame you and somebody called, so I've got another friend called Tracy Nichols, who is an amazing aromatherapist and nature-based therapist, and she works with multi-passionates and highly sensitive people. What I found started happening at first with my sessions with her, and now kind of much more so in pretty much all of my sessions with clients, is that sometimes I'll have the sense of something, but it's almost like something coming into focus, and I'll say things like, there's so much here, but I haven't got the words for it yet. And it's like, it's
still landing.
Yes, it's still landing. I was going to say it's the weirdest feeling, but it's not. It feels the most natural feeling. Yeah. And I've learnt not to question it, and some of the most amazing inspirational ideas come from it. Now, I don't know, because I know that some people will say I'm an intuitive coach or I'm an intuitive, and I kind of associate that with, what is that, like mind reading or clairvoyance? I am not sure if they mean something slightly. I got the feeling that being an intuitive means something slightly different to what I experience, but that's my definition of what intuition means to me. I also find that my intuition can get totally drowned out by busyness. Mm-hmm. So the modern world, I think, has, kind of really works against our ability to tune into our intuition, because I know for me, my intuition is really strong when I go for my walk every day, and I make sure that I don't listen to podcasts and I don't listen to music, and I'm just kind of out there with the trees and, and the water and the dog. When I'm meditating, yes, but sometimes even just having quiet time, being able to tune into what's going on for me physically as well, feeling very kind of in my body, not so in my head, that really enhances my intuition abilities.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that just giving yourself permission to have quiet time and connecting through yourself to quiet. So to me, also intuition is, I think oftentimes it's those messages coming from your higher self or your soul or your superconscious or whatever you may call it. I think there are a ton of different words for it, but I think that's also that kind of higher part of yourself going, this, not that. Here's an idea. Work on this. And because your higher self is connected to everything, it's got access to so much more information, but it doesn't always make sense to your logical conscious mind. So that's why you need to kind of have that quiet time to let those little kind of bits of information pop in.
That makes sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's certainly my kind of experience. I almost feel like this stuff I'm kind of feeling my way through it, but working without the guidebook. Where's the damn guidebook, Holly? Where is the damn guidebook? Is that what you're writing? Tell me that's what you're writing.
Maybe I should.
But I think that's my kind of conscious, rational brain wanting, even though I think intuitively I know there isn't a guidebook. You don't need a guidebook. You were born with a guidebook.
That's the thing, but most of us don't know that. And because we're so used to hearing all the gurus and all the teachers and all the other people saying, do it my way's the right way. Here's the 7 steps to this. Here's the 5 things you need to do for that. And we're so used to looking outside of ourselves for guidance and wisdom and information that we don't even realize we've got the guidebook within us.
That's so true, because we do have this really guru-centered world. Okay, can I switch? I'm just going to ask you like 7 million questions, if that's all right.
Okay. Sure. Fire away.
Okay, so we established that there's different types of woo, and it would seem to me the way to kind of get started and tune in is to kind of get out of busyness, is to learn to trust ourselves. And I'm wondering if that's maybe a whole episode about how we start to do that. But why should we bother? I mean, it sounded horrible the way I said that. But there is always that question. So I'm thinking, we were at a party weekend before last. And a friend of mine who I know from my old kind of tech e-learning days was there. And he was talking about his partner. And he said, yeah, she's got into all of this, I don't know, like tarot or angel cards or something like that. I mean, it's all nonsense. But, if she believes it, I kind of think, well, what's the harm? And I thought, well, I probably would have been kind of, oh, yeah, he's right, it's all nonsense a few years ago. And now I was just kind of, oh, that's just him. But I think there is that, not kind of build a case for the defense, but how does being more open to this stuff, how does it help us? What's the benefit?
Well, for me, the benefit is we are the only ones that know what's best for us. So if you're always looking to the guru and the 7 steps to this and someone else's blueprint, that's what worked for them. And that may or may not work for you, or it might work for you with some tweaks. But if you're constantly going out from yourself to looking at other people for solutions, you're going to find their solutions, which may not be your solutions. Whereas if you start looking within, you're going to get your solutions, which are going to be faster, more effective, more aligned, easier, because they're going to be your thing. And I just think that's kind of a more, I don't want to say authentic way of living, but easier way of living, because it's you and your thing rather than always struggling to try to do someone else's thing. I think it's just a much more efficient and effective way of living.
I've not thought about it that way. I honestly thought you were going to say, actually, no. Now I think about it, you're never going to say that. But so there's part of me, I was kind of thinking, oh, is it that, our angel guides have so much more wisdom coming from millennia of human potential wisdom, which I have to say would probably make me kind of go, oh, that feels too big and scary.
Okay, well, that's good that you said that, because so do we. Like, if you believe in the concept of reincarnation, if you believe in the concept of a soul that has chooses to have different human experiences here on Earth, like, we've got access to all that information from our previous lifetimes if we know how to access it, if we're willing to look at it, if we're willing to bring that wisdom into our lives. We don't necessarily even have to look to spirit guides or angels, or we can, that's absolutely fine. But we've also got lifetime, assuming you believe in this, lifetimes of wisdom of all the crap that we've learned and all the stuff that we've suffered and all the stuff that we've experienced and all the mistakes that we've made from God knows how many incarnations.
Okay, so I just had a light bulb. So my kind of thing of, oh, do I have to look to the angel guides or the spirit guides? Partly that scares me because I don't understand enough about it, but partly I realise, oh, that's me looking for the guru again.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not going to say I don't do that, because I do it. I ask the angels for help. I have spirit guides that I channel. Like, that's great. I love that stuff and I do it. But part of my path and part of this change that I'm going through now is helping people connect with themselves so that they can tap into their own inner wisdom and their higher self and get their own stuff that they've got, rather than constantly looking outside themselves to other people, entities, energies, whatever.
So we become sovereign keepers of ourselves. There's a huge amount of agency and genuine, I'm going to use this word, which I hate because we use it, it's so overused in personal development, but that kind of empowerment. But there's genuine power in that, in being able to tap into that source of kind of wisdom within yourself. And trusting that that's there.
Yes. And trusting in yourself, just unwavering trust in yourself.
And I suppose that then goes into the kind of, my brain then goes, what if I make a mistake? And then the answer I immediately got was, oh, what if you do?
That's how you learn.
Yes, exactly. And so this kind of sense of, I think there's something really comforting in the idea of kind of, oh, I'm actually kind of stretched out over generations and generations and lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes. And so therefore, any stupid mistake I make now, in the scheme of things, so it allows an awful lot of self-compassion as well.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm loving this. Okay. So why do you think there is so much resistance to, the idea of woo and all of that kind of stuff?
Well, I think because it's been pushed out of the mainstream into kind of the side stream, weird niche kind of area. And I think people are afraid of being seen as stupid. They're afraid of people laughing at them if they admit that they like these things or are open to these things or accept these things, because it's very much a niche thing. And I don't think it always was. And I think it was absolutely the normal way of doing things many, 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 many years ago. But I think, new religions came in. As you said, when we were talking about Druidry, the Romans came and they squashed it, and they, took some of the goddesses and transformed them into saints to try to make it easier to convert people. But they also
hold the phone. They did? Which ones? I didn't know any of this. Now I want to know this now.
Well, one of my favorite is Bridget, who is a saint in the Catholic Church, so St. Bridget, but she was a goddess before she was a saint. So that's just one example, but there's so many examples of Christianity taking local pagan Christmas, for God's sake. We're coming up on Christmas. That was Yule.
I remember that. And some of the things like the bringing of the greenery into the house, like bringing in a Christmas tree and having those types of things, that was about bringing in the nature spirits into the house.
Yeah, absolutely. And helping Easter? Us through this time of darkness and stepping into light, because it's also, we're approaching the darkest time of the year, and then we're going to be coming out and, the light's coming. Easter, of course, as well. That's totally pagan. My God, look at the date for Easter. It's the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. What is that? Is that like, that's pagan?
Yeah, I remember years ago teaching a quality and diversity course, and as part of the thing that we had brought in this game, this to kind of play with folks, to kind of start to broaden their ideas of culture and kind of diversity. And one of the kind of the questions on there was around Easter and where does the name Easter comes from, and it comes from Estra.
Yeah.
And the idea that we have Easter eggs comes from the fact that Estra was represented as a hare, like a rabbit.
Yeah.
And, and it was the pagan festival of fertility. She was the goddess of fertility. Am I getting this right?
Yeah.
And so all of this thing, you do kind of think, okay, so where do the eggs come in for this Christian festival about, Jesus dying and resurrecting? But
exactly,
you're right.
Nothing.
It's this pagan festival of, we have hot cross buns.
Yes.
So I don't know if they have those in, say, the US or but I know in the UK we have hot cross buns, which is this like little sweetbread roll, and it has a cross in the middle, and I was always told that was to represent the cross of Jesus Christ. But then when I did this course, they were actually saying no, originally it represented the 4 seasons.
Oh, I like that.
Yes.
All the more reason to eat hot cross
I
buns.
know. If you can find gluten-free ones, maybe.
I just eat the normal ones. I love them so much. No problems there.
So
Yeah,
there was a lot of kind of
absolutely.
politics stuff that kind of crushed this. And then, see, one of the things that the feminist in me gets really quite excited about is learning about the historical position of witchcraft and the demonization of, literal demonization
Yeah.
of witchcraft. I find that fascinating from a because from historically my understanding is that the majority of witches, people who are burned as witches, were wise women, were midwives, were the medicine healers, or just gobby women who had opinions. And they were the people who were, ducked as witches or burnt as witches, and it was a very deliberate attempt to kind of squash this very matriarchal power source and replace it with this very patriarchal view of puritanical Christianity, very patriarchal view of medicine. Moving away from a lot of the wisdom that was there around childbirth and, turning it into something that was, much more male dominated. I find all of that fascinating, and I am quite into how there's so much kind of modern day witchcraft that is I know it's become a bit of I know that some people criticize it because it's become a bit of a fashion statement, but I kind of think, well, so what?
Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? If that opens people's minds to a different way of doing things and a different way of seeing the world, I don't care. I don't care. It's opening people up to ancient wisdom and bringing it back up to the surface.
I'm looking at my desk now.
Yes.
And I have a little icon of Ganesh,
Ooh.
which I got in India. I have a little bowl full of crystals. I have a salt lamp. I have 2 sets of tarot cards, and I have a set of oracle cards. Oh, and a copper singing bowl.
Oh.
And I don't fully understand what any of them are meant to do. So this is the thing. And I don't know if this is because my logical, academic-y brain wants to have the guidebook. So I have all these crystals. I keep telling myself, oh, you must go learn what the crystals all mean. But I don't. I just know that some days I prefer kind of cradling different ones in my hands. Yep. And that's okay. Oh, I also have a quite a few aromatherapy kind of mixes and potions and things here, because I really love the power of aromatherapy. Tarot cards, similar thing. I have the Gaian Tarot, which is this beautiful one, which is, again, all very nature-based, which I love. And when I got that, I just thought, oh my God, I feel just so good when I'm around this. But I also have the Wild Unknown Tarot, which I opened and it scared the pants off me, and I hardly ever take it off the book. Genuinely, I get a kind of, I don't like this feeling of it. And I don't know why. Do I need to know why?
I mean, I understand your conscious mind's need to know why, because I've also come from a very kind of brain-focused, head-based life where I need logic and I need to understand things. And it's been challenging for me to kind of step into my body and feel into things rather than thinking I need to understand. I think absolutely. When you mentioned some days you feel like you need certain crystals, some days you feel you need others. I have a whole thing of crystals sitting behind my desk, and I do the same thing. Like when I bought them because I knew what they were going to do for me, but I don't remember all the details. And so oftentimes I'll work that way too. I feel like having this crystal, holding it in my hand during a session, or I feel like sitting with it as I work. I've got this one giant green, I can never remember whether it's calcite or the other one that starts with a C. See, I'm not an expert on this stuff. I've had this giant green thing that starts with a C sitting on my desk for like 2 years now, and I love it, and it does not move. It always sits there, and it's, I don't remember why I bought it, but I remember when I bought it, I needed it, and it needed to be a big one. So I think, there's part of our working with the stuff can come from the head, part of it can come from the gut. I think it's a mix of things.
I really like the fact that I feel like this has given me so much permission to just kind of go with the flow, which again is a very intuitive way of approaching things.
Absolutely.
Because I think, and I'm pretty sure I can't be alone in this, but I think I've thought, oh, okay, I don't really have any knowledge in this area, so I can't really talk about my experience of it because I don't know the history, I don't know the answers, and I think there is something around. I also want to be respectful of the modalities of the belief systems behind them. I don't just want to go wading in, just going, oh, I'm going to hang a dream catcher because Native Americans say, and there is something that can be very, I think, almost like just taking things for the fashion and dismissing the whole kind of cultural meaning of them. And I want to be really careful around that. And so I think it can be a bit of a tricky line sometimes. That being said, I'm maybe just going to allow myself to kind of go, yeah, I'm just going to hold the purple crystal today, which I know is called amethyst. Because I don't know if it's the only purple one, but that's the one I know. And sometimes I hold the yellow one, and sometimes I hold the pink one, which I know is called pink quartz. And then I have a blue one. I also have a green one. I don't know what it's called. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that whole thing of needing to know the answer and the logical reasoning behind it is kind of keeping me separate and missing the point.
Yeah, it is, because there's a part of you that knows exactly what that thing is called, what it does, and why you need it today.
And so my brain is trying to go, oh, okay, but I need the roadmap and I need to have the guidebook. And that's, maybe I just let that part of my brain kind of go off and, okay, you go figure it out then if you want to. I'm just going to sit here with my nice pink quartz and, smell my Tulsi oil and pull out another oracle card, and that will, that'll be good for the day. Yeah. Okay. I think these conversations are going to be great.
They are.
They're going to be so good. So what we thought we would kind of do as part of this is we'll maybe take different aspects of woo. Is that what we're going to talk to all of them? Kind of aspects of woo and have conversations around them, not with Holly being in the position of she's the oracle, she's the guru, but as somebody who is, I think, further along the further along the path. We also talked about maybe getting in some particular guest experts if there was an area that we were both interested in, but just wanted to be able to ask 7 million questions of somebody who is a practitioner of this. So if you have any suggestions of topics or areas of conversation that you would like us to focus on, then please do. You can drop us a line. I'm joe@joecasey.com.
And I'm Holly at hollywharton.com.
We both have Facebook groups, so we're going to be kind of...
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't?
I closed it.
Closed it as well?
Yeah, I moved it all over to Patreon, and I've got a little group in Patreon, and that's where it is. I've closed my Facebook group.
That must be really recent. I can remember seeing... Is it not recent?
No, about a month ago, I think.
That's recent to me.
Well, okay. my life moves at a speed where, a month ago, it's like old news.
Okay. I have a Facebook group, and Holly has a Patreon group. Okay, I want to talk to you about Patreon and all of that stuff. That's another one.
I love it. Love it.
Okay. But if you do have any topics and subjects that you would like us to dive into, or maybe even suggestions for guests, that would be that would be awesome. I will bring the 7 million questions, and Holly will bring her much more grounded wisdom.
I'll bring my gut.
Okay, yes, you bring your gut. See, I love that you're so kind of down to earth. I think one of the things as well is that you have this particular talent, Holly, of just being very down to earth and not... So you make the subjects seem just so natural and non-intimidating.
Oh, that's nice.
They're very approachable.
Thank you. I like that. That's good.
So yeah, if you have any questions, you can email either of us, or I have a Facebook group, which is the Coaches and Healers Collective. I'll be kind of promoting this on social media and things. Holly, you still doing social media?
Yes, I am. Yeah, but in a radically different way. Like I've completely deleted all of my not my library, but my calendar for Edgar. So I'm no longer like sharing tons of content on social media. Like I'm trying to kind of reduce my activity in social media, but make it more social. Like how I used to teach to do social media. So, yeah. Yeah. Less active, but more real rather than just here's my content.
Yeah. So we're really excited about this new direction. I'm so jazzed about it. I'm just like, oh my God, all the things that I'll get to ask. So the kind of the working title that I'd kind of proposed for this is everything you ever wanted to know about intuition, woo and witchcraft, but were too afraid to ask.
Yay.
So
like it.
If you have any questions around any of those things or suggestions for topics you'd like us to dive into, please let us know. Holly, this is so exciting. I'm so glad to be doing this again with you. I really hope that folks who've been listening have enjoyed it and are looking forward to our next episodes. And we'll see you in a month's time.
Yes, thank you. I'm so glad we're back.
Me too.
Thank you so much for listening. Please drop me a line and let me know what you thought of this week's episode. Email me at holly@hollywharton.com or find me online and get in touch. Please also let me know if there's any specific woo topic that you want Joe and I to cover. Please also let me know what you think of this new focus in topics for us. I know some people that listen to this podcast are not all into woo, so sorry. You can skip these episodes or you can listen to them anyway and see if you learn anything. Thank you again so much for listening, and if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. It would mean the world to me. Next week's episode, I am back for another solo episode. Don't know the topic yet, and as always, I'm open to receiving topics, so if you have anything that you would like me to talk about, please let me know. And remember to visit hollywharton.com/281 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you. Thanks so much for listening to Into the Woods with Holly Wharton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed, at hollywharton.com. That's HOLLYWORTON.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and get support on your journey, I would love for you to join my private community on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Holly Wharton. That's patreon.com/Holly Wharton. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next week.